Yo, what's good, Money Crew?
Imagine this. It's mid-December 2025, and the world is holding its breath. The Department of Justice finally cracks open the vault on Jeffrey Epstein's files. Millions of pages from his criminal cases, his sprawling estate, and the shadowy financial records that tied him to some of the most powerful people on the planet. This isn't just another drip of scandal. It's supposed to be the flood, mandated by the new Transparency Act, designed to pull back the curtain on one of the darkest chapters in modern history. But as the documents start trickling out, something feels off. Page after page is blacked out, names obscured, transactions hidden behind thick lines of ink. And while everyone's chasing the salacious headlines, the political names, the celebrity whispers, the real story slips through the cracks. It's the money. Epstein's fortune wasn't just big, it was a fortress, built with offshore accounts, private islands, ironclad trusts, and investments that might still be quietly protecting billions for the elite who played in his world. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a heist movie playing out in real life, where the getaway isn't a speeding car, but a labyrinth of shell companies and tax havens. And those redactions, they're not just about privacy. They could be the last line of defense for fortunes that the law never touched. Let me take you back to where it all started, because to understand the bombshell of these 2025 releases, you have to see how Epstein spun his web. Picture a young guy in the 1970s, no college degree, kicked out of his teaching gig at a fancy New York prep school for reasons that were never fully clear. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't born into wealth, he clawed his way in. He landed at Bear Stearns, the investment bank, charming his way up the ladder with a knack for numbers and a hunger for connections. But even then, whispers followed him. Rumors of shady deals, of bending rules to make the rich richer. By the early 80s, he'd struck out on his own, calling himself a financial architect. Sounds impressive, right? But what did that really mean? He wasn't managing massive hedge funds like the Wall Street Titans. No, Epstein specialized in something more intimate, helping the ultra-wealthy hide, grow, and protect their money from taxes, lawsuits, and prying eyes. The turning point came in the late 80s, when he crossed paths with Les Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret and The Limited. Wexner wasn't just a client, he was Epstein's golden ticket. Epstein got unlimited power of attorney over Wexner's finances. Think about that for a second. That's like handing someone the keys to your kingdom. Epstein sold off billions in Wexner's stocks, managed his yachts, his planes, even his homes. In return, Wexner poured money into Epstein's world, including transferring properties and funneling cash that helped Epstein build his own empire. Experts like those from the Senate Finance Committee have called it foundational capital. Without Wexner, Epstein might have stayed a mid-level hustler. But with it, he exploded. By the 90s, Epstein was buying up real estate like it was candy. A massive townhouse on Manhattan's Upper East Side, a sprawling ranch in New Mexico, an apartment in Paris, a mansion in Palm Beach. And then came the islands. Little St. James and Great St. James in the US Virgin Islands, bought for pennies on the dollar compared to their value. These weren't vacation spots, they were fortresses, isolated paradises where Epstein could entertain the powerful without eyes on him. Now, here's where the storytelling gets tense. Because as these new files reveal, even through the redactions, Epstein's money machine was a masterpiece of evasion. He set up shop in the Virgin Islands not just for the beaches, but for the tax breaks. Through companies like Financial Trust Company and later Southern Trust Company, he tapped into the territory's economic development program. Over 2 decades, from 1999 to 2018, this saved him around $300 million in taxes. How? By routing his income through these entities, claiming they were boosting local jobs while really just shielding his wealth. The files show dividends pouring in, over $360 million, mostly tax-free. And that's just what we can see. Forensic accountants who've pored over similar setups say this is classic jurisdictional arbitrage, picking spots like Bermuda or the Caymans where secrecy is king. Speaking of Bermuda, one of the standout revelations in these releases is Epstein's chairmanship of Liquid Funding Limited, a Bear Stearns-linked company registered there. From 2000 to 2007, it was a shell, a paper entity with no real meetings, just a way to park money offshore. The Paradise Papers, leaked years ago, gave us a peek, but these new DOJ files fill in the blanks. Hundreds of pages detailing how Epstein used it to cloak assets, including millions in Bermudan accounts. Why does this matter? Because shells like these aren't just for hiding taxes, they're escape hatches. If lawsuits come knocking, or in Epstein's case, criminal charges, they make it hard to trace and seize money. Ron Wyden, the Senate Finance Committee ranking member, has been banging the drum on this. In his 2025 analysis, he pointed out how banks like JP Morgan Chase enabled it, processing over $1 billion in transactions across 55 accounts. While Epstein was alive, they flagged peanuts, about $4.3 million in suspicious activity. But after his death, boom! Retroactive reports covering nearly $1.3 billion dating back to 2003. Wyden calls it a follow-the-money failure, where executives ignored red flags like structured cash withdrawals and payments to co-conspirators. And the co-conspirators? That's where the emotion builds, because Epstein didn't build this alone. The files hint at a network of enablers, bankers, lawyers, even other billionaires. Take Leon Black, the Apollo Global Management co-founder. He paid Epstein $158 million for tax and estate planning advice from 2012 to 2017. Or Google co-founder Sergey Brin, who got guidance on setting up a tax-sheltering trust for his kids. Then there's Libet Johnson, the Johnson & Johnson heiress, who funneled over $2 million to Epstein's foundation while he oversaw her land trusts. These weren't small favors, they were multi-million-dollar lifelines that kept Epstein afloat even after his 2008 conviction for soliciting prostitution from a minor. He was a registered sex offender, yet the rich kept coming. Why? As author Barry Levine puts it in his book on Epstein, he was a people collector, gathering intel, favors, and maybe even blackmail to stay in the game. But let's slow down and reflect for a moment, because this isn't just about numbers on a page. Imagine being one of the victims, reading these files, seeing how the system bent for him. Epstein's wealth wasn't abstract, it funded the horrors. The Lolita Express, his private Boeing 727, ferried elites to his islands, where the abuse happened. The files describe payments to young women, trafficked from places like Russia and Belarus, funneled through these same accounts. And the twists keep coming. After his 2019 arrest, Epstein's estate was valued at $578 million, $56 million in cash, $18.5 million in vehicles and planes, unappraised art, and properties worth hundreds of millions. But he signed a will just 2 days before his suicide, dumping everything into the 1953 trust. Beneficiaries? Secret. Executors? His lawyers, Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn. Creditors, meaning victims, get paid first, but trusts like this can shield assets from seizure. Irrevocable ones lock them away. Revocable ones don't, but Epstein's setup was designed to frustrate. The 2025 releases under the Transparency Act were supposed to change that. Flight logs, grand jury testimony, all out in the open, with redactions only for victims' privacy or ongoing probes. But as the documents hit the web, the redactions pile up. Entire sections on financial flows blacked out, no explanations. One email mentions 10 co-conspirators discussed by the FBI in 2019, redacted. Pages on Russian bank links, Alpha and Sberbank, obscured. Why? The Act bans redactions for embarrassment or political sensitivity, but critics like Wyden say the DOJ is dragging its feet, perhaps protecting the powerful. And here's a surprising twist. Some redactions aren't even secure. Tech-savvy folks copied and pasted blacked-out text, revealing hidden details. It's sloppy, almost like a rush job to comply without fully exposing. Dig deeper, and the real gut punch emerges. A forensic analysis in the files, over 2,800 documents, maps 34 corporate entities, half in the Virgin Islands post-2008 conviction. It's deliberate. After his plea deal, Epstein doubled down on secrecy. Banks like Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan processed it all, ignoring alarms. Wyden's memo blasts JP Morgan execs for coaching Epstein on obscuring cash pools,
and tuning out compliance officers. Jamie Dimon, the CEO, had direct reports supervising the relationship. And post-death, the estate sold properties for $160 million, less than appraised, leading to a $112 million IRS refund in 2024, ballooning assets back to $150 million after payouts. Victims got over $160 million through a compensation fund, plus $105 million to the Virgin Islands for racketeering claims.
But with $131 million left as of March 2025, where does it go? To secret heirs? Untouched offshore pots? Experts weigh in heavy here. A ResearchGate study calls it a financial architecture enabling crime, shells for money laundering, real estate as value stores. ICIJ investigators trace it to the Paradise Papers, showing Epstein's offshore fortune cloaked in tax havens. Bloomberg's probe reveals Epstein advising Wall Street even after his 2006 charges, like pitching Renaissance funds amid prostitution headlines. And the New York Times uncovers his post-conviction bank in the Virgin Islands, a specialized entity for offshore clients, approved despite his sex offender status. It's mind-boggling. A man convicted of exploiting girls gets a banking license in a territory with lax oversight. As the tension peaks, consider the human cost. Victims argued for these releases, yet the redactions feel like another betrayal. Survivors spoke up, did the hardest part, but confusion reigns. Who's shielded now? The files show Epstein's web wasn't dismantled. Pieces linger. His brother Mark was the only named beneficiary pre-will, but the trust hides more. And those billions potentially shielded? Not just Epstein's, client fortunes intertwined, like Wexner's $1.3 billion in stock sales under Epstein's control, or Black's tax shelters. I can't help but feel a chill thinking about it. This isn't ancient history, it's 2026, and the echoes persist. Epstein's death in 2019 closed one door, but these files pry open others, showing how wealth warps justice. The elite get red carpets, while victims fight for scraps. Wyden urges a full follow-the-money probe, but will it happen? The Transparency Act promised light, yet shadows remain. What if those redactions hide not just names, but pathways to unseized billions, fortunes quietly ticking away in trusts, islands, and shells? It leaves you wondering, in a world where money buys silence, who really pays the price? And as we turn the page on this saga, one truth lingers. True accountability might always be one redaction away. If this story got you thinking, if it made you angry, curious, or just a little unsettled, then do me a favor. Hit that like button if you want to see more breakdowns like this, ones that cut through the noise and shine a light on the stories the headlines often miss. Drop a comment below. What shocked you the most? The offshore web? The redactions? Or the fact that so much of this could still be protected today? I read every single one, and your thoughts help shape what we cover next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because the more people talking about where the money really went, the harder it becomes to keep it hidden. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. We're just getting started unpacking the biggest, most complicated scandals and turning them into stories you can actually understand, and maybe even lose sleep over. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.